And one of the most important things about meditation, which I always talk about here, is this sense of finding that sense of joy and happiness and inspiration in your meditation practice. And the reason why that is so important is because once you find that inspiration, the defilements of the mind subside, they go down, and your mind becomes very pure, and that's when you find a sense of happiness and gladness inside. And that's when the mind comes into the present moment. And when the mind comes into the present moment, that's when you're mindful, right? That's when meditation actually takes off and becomes easy. So a lot of the advice that the Buddha gives in his suttas, in the discourses, is about how to inspire yourself, how to find this gladness in meditation practice. And yesterday I was talking a little bit here about the forest tradition around the world, about various particular monastics who practice far away in the forest. And one of the ways that the Buddha recommends to train yourself in getting inspired is to think about either the Sangha Nusati, recollection of the Sangha, or he talks also about the Kalyana Mitta Nusati, the recollection of your Kalyana Mittas. And Kalyana Mitta is like a spiritual friend, right? So how can you approach this idea of recollecting your spiritual friends? And of course the first of spiritual friends is the Buddha himself. But that is more like Buddha Nusati, recollection of the Buddha. But that is one way of doing this Kalyana Nusati. Another way is to remember those people in the world who are like your teachers, right? People who are inspiring, people who you find are examples of the practice of the Buddhist path. And these were some of the people I was talking about yesterday. And so a couple of examples that come to mind now, which I didn't talk about yesterday. There's another very famous monk in Sri Lanka, and he was one of these monks who would be wandering around Sri Lanka every day of the year, all the time. For about 40 years, he would just wander around the island of Sri Lanka all the time, never stopping in one place. And then he would stop for the rains retreat, because according to the monastic discipline, you have to stay in one place for the rains retreat. So he would stay for the rains retreat for 3 months. Then he would start wandering again, right? Always wandering from place to place, never actually stopping anywhere. And there's a well-known story of this particular monk. He was walking towards a crossroads. And as he was moving towards this crossroads, one of his people who knew him, they approached him and they asked him, Bhante, when you get to that crossroads, will you go to the left or will you go to the right? And he said, I will find out when I get to the crossroads. He was only about a few meters away, right? This is kind of the idea of just wandering without any kind of particular direction, and then finding a place for the night and sleeping, and then meditating during the night, and then wandering again during the day, right? And there's a very powerful example there. There's a powerful example that someone who lives that kind of life. And another example I was mentioning yesterday, maybe bring that up first of all, is also like the example of Ajahn Brahmali in his cave, right? Meditating in his cave for 6 months, not seeing anybody for 6 months, just getting his food carried, put down in the box somewhere, picking up his food, and then meditating, staying in his tiny little kuti, walking on his walking meditation path, not being anywhere else for 6 months. And there's something about people of that kind of example, that there's something about that you know, that they have some kind of understanding, some kind of happiness, some kind of insight which is beyond what people normally have. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to sustain that, right? There's some profundity, there's some profound knowledge inside of you that enables you to practice in this way. And when you think about that these are people living in the world right now, right? People like Ajahn Brahmali, he comes here to the Buddha Society and gives you teachings. People who have these kind of insights, these kind of qualities are still available in the world. And these are our Kalyana Mittas. That's how you recollect this idea of noble or spiritual friendship. So think about that sometimes, what a wonderful thing it is that these people still exist, and that they are part of our practice and part of our, helping us forward on this spiritual path. And sometimes if you get that kind of feeling right, it boosts your meditation, right? You feel a sense of joy because it's such a powerful thing to have people like that around us and among us. And not only that, but you also have, here in Perth, you have a forest monastery with people practicing in a forest monastery. And of course, many people get the results of being part of that. You have the nuns monastery, and some of the nuns will be getting similar kind of results by staying in the forest. And of course, you have the Kalanamittas here in the Buddha Society, the lay people. The fact that you have a Buddha society where 1,000 people, it's about 1,000 people now who keep the 5 precepts. 1,000 people keep the 5 precepts. It's wonderful. It's a very powerful thing here. And it's very rare to find this kind of thing in the world. And then, of course, among these 1,000 people, then they go down to Jhana Grove and they practice at Jhana Grove. And sometimes they get very good results in the meditation practice because of that purity that they bring in to the meditation. So this is what you have here. So reflect on that. Reflect on that wonderful thing of having all these kalanamittas, all these good people around you who kind of carry you along and pull you along on this spiritual path. And how rare it is to find this in the world. Living in a Perth is a great blessing because Buddha society of this kind of strength that we have here is very, very difficult to find almost anywhere in the world. So count your blessing, as they say. Don't think about look at the good sides in life, and then that will inspire you in the right direction. Okay, so that's just a little bit of advice on meditation. So let's try it out in practice. Okay, so as always, in your meditation practice, to start off by finding the ease in the body, making sure the body is nice and comfortable. Make sure you have no tensions or tightness anywhere, that you feel really nice and really relaxed in the body. So go through the body at places where you normally feel tense, or just sit there and just feel the body. And you will straight away, you will tend to be able to find out what part is not relaxed, not at ease. And just take whatever time you need just to relax the body 100%. And then you know that the body is relaxed when it starts to fade into the background. When the body is just at ease and you just feel good sitting there, the body is no problem and it fades away, that's when you know that you are just right. always spend a little bit of time of the meditation by just being the passive observer, just allowing things to flow along. No judgment, no right and wrong. And by learning that, you're already learning the first stage of peace, the peace of not reacting, the peace of not doing. And this is the initial condition required for meditation to work. as you practice in this way, try to give yourselves a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a lift by just reflecting very wisely. And try to possibly to reflect on the idea and how fortunate you are to have all these kalyanamitas on this path, all these people who practice so well, all these people who are there to give you good advice, all these people who are capable of staying in solitude for long periods of time. What an amazing thing it is to have these kind of kalyanamitas. They are there to help you, they are there to inspire you, and they're there to show you the path. And what a wonderful thing that is. And when you are ready, when the mind is nice and balanced, the mind is feeling nice and peaceful, then very gently rest the mindfulness on the breath. No force, no pushing, no holding, no attachment, as if you're resting your mind on the breath, and then just allow things to take over from there. Okay. Okay, anybody have any questions or comments or anything? Yeah. Everybody happy? Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay, so let's pay respect to Buddha Dhamma Sangha.